The Balrog's whip cracks through the dark like lightning given shape, and this time the fall does not end in fire, but in silence. Gandalf's body strikes stone far below, neck broken, staff splintered, the white light around him shattering like glass as the Balrog's roar fades into the endless deeps. Far above, on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, the Fellowship cannot see what has become of him, only the yawning gulf and the first trembling hint that the world has already begun to tilt toward shadow. If you're into deep dives like this into alternate Middle-earth timelines, tap like, consider subscribing, and tell me in the comments what corner of Middle-earth you'd stand to defend when the shadow rises. Because in this timeline, it will ask that of everyone. The stones of the bridge vibrate beneath the Fellowship's feet as Legolas drags Frodo back from the edge. "Gandalf!" Aragorn's voice breaks, raw and too late. There is no answering flare of light in the abyss, no distant thunder of battle, no hope to cling to. Only darkness, swallowing sound. Boromir's hand tightens on his sword. We must go, now, or we will join him. It is Aragorn who moves first, though his eyes linger on the void a heartbeat too long. He feels something in him crack along a line he did not know was there. He was not ready, not for this choice, not for this burden handed to him without warning and without the one guide he trusted to bear it. "Fly!" he snaps, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. This is not our place to die. They run. The drums of Moria pound against the stone, an iron heartbeat growing nearer with every turn of the stair. Goblins howl in narrow corridors. Arrows hiss past, clatter on rock. Sam half carries Frodo, who moves like a sleepwalker, eyes fixed on some private disaster only he can see. Merry and Pippin sob openly as they run, the sound thin and frightened in the stone-choked air. Legolas glances back once, sharp eyes searching the gulf where the wizard vanished. There is no sign of movement, no hint of struggle below, just air and the whisper of ancient depths. For the first time since he left his wood, the elf feels something very close to panic. Gimli does not look back at all. Dwarven hearts are not made for such falls. Behind them, for a few brief moments, the Balrog stands upon a broken ledge far below, great wings of shadow unfurling, then shrinking as it peers upward. The light that struck it is gone. There is only the fading echo of pain. It turns, pacing deeper into the caverns of the world, making for older fires, older wounds. What dies here is not only Gandalf's body. Something in the weave of Middle-earth, some gentle counterweight that had always stood quiet and stubborn against despair, flickers and gutters. A candle snuffed in a storm that has only just begun. Outside, under a sky still holding the last pale memory of day, the Fellowship bursts from the Dimrill Gate, stumbling into the cold embrace of Miramira's air. Snow crests glare from the tall shoulders of the mountains. The wind cuts like knives. They collapse onto the tumbling scree, coughing up the dust of Moria, each of them reaching for breath and finding only the jagged edges of grief. Frodo staggers to the edge of the pool, staring at its still black surface, his chest heaving. The ring at his throat feels heavier than it did an hour ago, as if it has feasted. Sam drops beside him, hands on his knees. He can't be gone, Sam mutters. Wizards don't just... They're not like us, Mr. Frodo. Hell be back. You'll see. Any moment now, Hell comes striding out, puffing on that pipe, making some joke about our long faces. The silence that follows answers him more plainly than words. Aragorn turns away so they cannot see his face. He stares east over the mountains, toward lands he knows and fears to claim. Gondor, the White City, the river he was raised beside. So much weight, so much expectation, and now no Mithrandir to stand between him and his own name. He had always half believed this day would never quite arrive. Boromir studies him, eyes narrowed, measuring the new shape of the world. "What now?" Legolas asks at last, voice low, not deferring to Aragorn precisely, but acknowledging the vacuum. "Where do we go? We cannot return through Moria, and there will be more orcs coming out of that gate before long." Aragorn straightens slowly. He feels the gaze of all of them like stones on his shoulders. Hobbits too young for such burdens, a dwarf whose home lies entombed behind them, an elf who has walked the shores of timeless seas, and a man of Gondor who does not yet know which way his honor will bend. "We go on," Aragorn says. "Through the gap of Rohan, we will make for Gondor, to Minas Tirith." The choice falls heavy on the snow. Boromir's eyes flicker with surprise, then satisfaction. This, at least, bends toward his hope. "It is the safer road," he says, and the wiser. "Gondor still stands. We have walls, armies, strength left in us. Let us not skulk in the shadows when a city of men would welcome us." Legolas' brow furrows. Gandalf spoke of going to Lothlorien, the Lady Galadriel. Gandalf is dead. Boromir cuts in, more sharply than he intends. Pain makes the words hard. His counsel died with him. We must think for ourselves now. Merry flinches as if struck. Pippin stares at Boromir, suddenly aware of the man's size, his armor, the hard, practical steel behind his eyes. Aragorn hesitates. He had heard Gandalf's plans. He knows the Lady of the Wood is more than tales spun to frighten children. He himself had trod her paths and come away changed. Yet the memory of Boromir's earlier words lingers. Gondor is strong. Gondor yet stands. And Minas Tirith, for all its weariness, casts a long white shadow across his heart. He has no wizard now to lean on. The ring's presence has grown heavier, more present since the bridge. He finds his thoughts circling walls, armies, banners in the wind, the white tree long dead, but not yet uprooted. To place the ring within a bastion of men, under guard, hidden, while they consider, it has a certain cold sense to it. "We go to Gondor," Aragorn says at last, voice quiet, but firm. Gandalf wanted the ring hidden, and who better to hide it than the city that has defied Mordor for 1,000 years? The enemy's gaze is fixed on Minas Tirith. Even now, he will not look for his treasure beneath his greatest foe. Frodo lifts his head. The cold stings his eyes, but he knows the difference between pain and warning. "I thought," he swallows, "I thought we were taking it away from great cities, away from people, to somewhere secret, somewhere hidden." "And so we shall," Aragorn replies, and he almost believes it. Minas Tirith is a maze of stone tunnels, vaults. There are places beneath the city where even the steward does not tread. You will not be alone, Frodo Baggins. Gandalf said we would stand against the shadow together. That has not changed. He does not realize how much his need shapes his reasoning. Far to the east, in a fortress of black stone and terrible light, something stirs. On the high tower of Barad-dûr, the eye flares brighter for a moment, a vertical slit of fire surveying the world with a predator's patience. It does not yet know what has happened in Moria, but it feels the absence like a gap in a web, a small, irritating emptiness where resistance once hummed. Gandalf the Grey had always been a complication, a meddler, a whisperer in halls of power and in the thatched cottages of nobodies. His death, when it is truly understood, will not be mourned in Mordor. For now, the eye turns westward in general, feeling for the ring like a tongue, seeking an aching tooth. There are stirrings in the east and south, armies called dragons of smoke rising from mountaintop forges. But the Dark Lord is cautious. He does not yet reveal his full hand, not while he is unsure. He does not know that his sharpest enemy has fallen not in glory, but in a broken heap of bones in the dark of Moria, far below the notice of any who yet walk in the sun. Wind tears at the fellowship as they push down from the mountains. Snow gives way to brown grass, then to the long rolling fields that feed Rohan's horses. Clouds drift like pale ghosts along the eaves of the misty mountains, veiling peaks and secrets both. Occasional farmsteads dot the land, smoke curling from low chimneys. Sheep bells tinkle in the distance. It feels for a brief time like a world that might go on forever unchanged. Yet even here, unease seeps in. Twice, Legolas pauses on a rise, eyes narrowing toward the far horizon, once north, once east. Frodo feels it too, a pressure like weather inside his bones. The ring lies warm against his skin, whispering that nothing beyond his own weariness matters, that Minas Tirith's strength could be his, that walls and spears and banners would bow to him if he wanted. He shudders and clutches it closer, as if to choke it into silence. They do not go to Lothlorien. No silver trunks rise around them, no lamplit flets above. Galadriel will later stand upon a high balcony in Caras Galadhon, eyes searching westward, and find only absence where hope once approached. She will feel, with a clarity that stops her breath, the distance widening between choice and doom. On the third evening after Moria, as the Fellowship makes camp in the lee of a low hill, figures appear on the ridgeline. Riders with long spears and helms like horse heads, cloaks snapping in the chill wind. Shadowed by the setting sun, they pause, wild manes of hair blowing behind them. "Stay your hands," Aragorn says softly, stepping forward. His stride lengthens, shoulders squaring in a way Boromir recognizes, the ranger beginning to remember the king he has denied. These are no servants of Mordor. Eomer, son of Eomund, rides at the front, his gaze sharp, his jaw tight with cares the hobbits cannot yet imagine. He studies the motley group below, hobbits, dwarf, elf, two men, all travel-worn and grief-struck, and something in him softens. "Who are you?" Eomer calls, "who wander armed in the mark without the leave of the king, fleeing from the mountains as if an army were at your heels?" "Travelers," Aragorn answers, voice steady, "friends of Rohan, and of the late King Theoden." He misjudges, for the poison of Saruman lies heavier on Rohan now than in the world he once knew. Boromir's eyes flicker, catching the word late a step before everyone else. He glances at Aragorn. This timeline shifts subtly. Aragorn does not. "Theoden king yet lives," Eomer says sharply, "though he is pressed by many foes. Saruman preys upon us from Isengard. Wolves raid from the east fold. Orcs and worse things cross our borders by night. You name yourself a friend of Rohan. Speak your name plainly, then." There is a pause, like a held breath. In another world, Gandalf would have advised caution. Or not. Perhaps he would have laid his hand on Aragorn's arm, squeezing once. "Now tell them, here, no such guidance comes? I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he says, as much to himself as to Eomer, Ranger of the North. "I ride in the company of Boromir of Gondor, Legolas of the Woodland Realm, Gimli son of Glóin, and 4 hobbits of the Shire, who bear a burden too great for any of us." Eomer's gaze lingers on Aragorn's face, catching some echo of Númenor in his bearing. But in this darkening age it seems more a shadow of legend than a living claim. A strange fellowship, Eomer mutters, and a strange burden. He glances toward the hobbits, catching Frodo's haggard stare. "I cannot help you, strangers. My orders from the king," his voice tightens slightly on the word, "are to patrol the Eastham net and cut down any orc bands we find. We are hard-pressed. We have no strength to spare for the troubles of passing wanderers." Aragorn steps closer, pitching his voice so that only Eomer hears the next words. "If Saruman is preying upon you, then your troubles are tied to ours. The enemy we flee has long arms. The burden we carry is the enemy's heart. He does not say us a ring." Some instincts remain. Eomer frowns, sensing the deeper currents, but unable to see their full shape. "If that is true, then you should not be wandering in the open like lost shepherds. Go to your Gondor, then. Raise your walls. Rohan will stand as long as it may. No more can be asked of us. Where then is Theodred?" Boromir interjects, wary curiosity pricking him. Where is Eomer's own honor in all this? Eomer's jaw tightens. "Theodred fell at the fords of Isen," he says flatly, "cut down by Saruman's filth. I am third marshal now, whether I wished it or no. And as for honor, I ride where I must, not where songs would place me." The wind takes his words and scatters them across the grass. For a moment, Aragorn considers asking for horses, for Rohan's oath to Gondor renewed on the field between them. But something in Eomer's closed, pained face tells him that Rohan itself trembles on the edge of ruin. To bind them now would be to drag a sick man into a race he cannot run. "We will not trouble you further, Eomer, son of Eomund," Aragorn says. "But when the shadow falls, remember this night. The paths of our peoples cross for a reason." Eomer's gaze softens. He takes something from his belt, a small horn carved with running horses, and tosses it down. Boromir catches it, surprised. "If you find yourself in Rohan again and still live," Eomer says, "blow that, and if any of my Ered hears it, they will ride to your aid. That is all I can give. It is, in its way, everything." They part as the light bleeds from the sky, each group riding toward a fate neither fully understands. In a small village in the Westfold that night, a young woman named Hild throws water over her fire and bars her door against wolves that howl too near. She has never seen Gandalf's fireworks, never heard Bilbo's tales, does not know names like Isildur or Mithrandir. But she feels the world changing nonetheless in the way her father's hand shakes when he sharpens his spear, in the way the stars seem fewer with each season. She goes to sleep with her little brother clutched to her chest, whispering stories of golden-haired kings and unending summers, trying to hold a picture of the world steady in his mind as it begins to slip in hers. South and east the fellowship goes, skirting Isengard by Aragorn's insistence. With Gandalf gone, he does not trust the Wizard of the White Hand, whom he has never met, but has always mistrusted in stories. A deep instinct warns him away from the ring of many pillars, from the smooth obsidian tower where a once wise mind has bent. They see smoke on the horizon where Isengard lies. They hear, carried on an ill wind, the rhythmic clash of iron on iron. But they do not turn their steps that way. Saruman sits alone with his palantir, peering into eastward fires, feeling less watched than before. He smiles faintly, sensing opportunity where others might see only fear. "What troubles you, halfling?" Legolas asks Frodo one night beside a small fire as stars prick the black shell of the sky. The elf's voice is quiet, almost musical, but there is steel beneath it. You have walked as one chased by more than footsteps since Moria. Frodo stares into the flames. Their shifting orange light reminds him of another fire in another dark, and of a gray shape plummeting. "Everything troubles me," he answers. "Gandalf is dead. The ring is heavier. We're going to a great city I've never seen. Men are divided. And every night when I close my eyes, I feel something looking for me, like a candle in a big empty house, and something that lives below the floorboards wants to find it and blow it out." Sam shifts closer, arm brushing Frodo's. "You're not alone, Mr. Frodo," he says, stubbornness and fear braided in his voice. "Gandalf or no Gandalf, we're sticking by you. You mark that." Legolas looks east, thoughtful. "There is a darkness moving that is not the darkness," he says softly. "Saruman plays with powers he does not understand. But there is another emptiness too. Something that stood between the world and despair is less than it was, as if a great tree has fallen very far away, and we hear only the echo of its crash. They cannot name it. They cannot see Gandalf's spirit wandering in gray limbo, torn between the work unfinished and the calling of the West. In this timeline, there is no summons back, no voice beyond the circles of the world bidding him to rise and become more. The Valar, watching from beyond bent seas, feel the strain on the world and hesitate, for this is not their first loss. In the deeps of time, they sent one of the five to stir hearts against Sauron. Now his flame is snuffed before its appointed hour, and their hands, bound by promises and distance, tremble on the edges of Arda's sorrows. Mandos is silent. Manwë's face is like stone. Gandalf's journey does not lead back to the living. It coils instead into quiet, into the long embrace of rest denied too long. He goes where the elves go, beyond even their memory. There is no White Rider coming. Dawn comes pale over the Pelennor from a rise on the western plain. The Fellowship sees Minas Tirith for the first time, 7 walls like ribs, climbing up to a white tower that catches the first light of morning. The city gleams, but there is a tiredness to it, a sense of age poorly mended. Black stains on some stones where the rains have not washed clean. A banner hangs limp atop the high tower, the white tree on a black field with no crown above it. Frodo's breath catches. "It's beautiful," he whispers, and then, almost at once, and sad. Boromir's eyes glisten, though he blinks quickly. "There she stands," he says softly. "Minas Tirith, Tower of Guard. I was born in that city. My father rules there, and my brother walks those streets. She is all that stands between the shadow and the lands you call home." Aragorn watches, feeling a peculiar ache. In another life, another telling, this would be the moment he hides, avoids, skirts the White City, knowing he is not yet ready to claim it. Here, by his own choice, he walks toward it with the ring-bearer behind him. Each step feels like weaving one more thread into a pattern he can no longer unmake. They descend toward the great North Gate, where guards in black and silver hold halberds across the road. Trumpets sound on the lower levels as the strangers are sighted. Word runs up the city like a spark along a dry fuse. Halflings at the gate, a ranger of the north, the heir of the stewards, dreams and fears. Denethor sits in his stone hall, on his stone chair that is not a throne. His beard is more gray than black now. His eyes are deep and unwelcome wells. He has not slept well for many years, and in his private chamber, in a locked iron case, lies a sphere of dark crystal that whispers wars. He hears the tale of their coming before they reach the citadel. A messenger bends low, voice trembling. "My lord, a company of strangers at the gate. One names himself Aragorn, son of Arathorn. They bear halflings, my lord, as in the old rhymes, and one from Gondor, Boromir, your son." Denethor's hand stills on the arm of his chair. For a heartbeat, something like joy cracks his face. Then habit, suspicion, and the weight of years settle back. He rises slowly. The great hall of Minas Tirith is cool and dim, lit by high windows and the faint ghost of ancient grandeur. The white marble is veined with gray like old bone. At the far end, before a long flight of steps, sits Denethor, robed in black, a white rod in his hand. The fellowship walks into that hall under the weight of 100 curious eyes. Captains, counselors, servants, all craning to see the short strangers and the tall one with the grim, wary face. Boromir strides first, armor clanking, cloak of his city swirling behind him. He stops at the base of the steps and bows his head. "Father." Denethor descends a few steps, looking first to Boromir, then to Aragorn. In that glance, a lifetime of pride, fear, jealousy, and strange hope flickers. "You return at last," Denethor says to his son, "and not alone. Who are these you bring into my hall, Boromir? You spoke of a council in the north, of a weapon of the enemy. What madness have you fetched to Gondor's door?" Boromir hesitates, glancing at Aragorn, at Frodo. The weight of decision presses upon him. He could name the ring, reveal everything, cast this burden from his shoulders into his father's lap. Some part of him aches to do it, but Moria haunts him. Gandalf's fall, the sight of Frodo's white face in the dark, the memory of his own temptation at the council's first mention of the ring, and the shame that followed. "What I bring," Boromir says slowly, "is a chance, a perilous one, but a chance nonetheless to end the war that has drained Gondor all my life. These are the ring-bearer and his companions, come to seek counsel and aid." The hall murmurs. Denethor's eyes sharpen, flicking to Frodo, to the small bulge beneath his shirt. The old tales rise in his mind like smoke. He had guessed from half glimpses in the Seeing Stone that some such thing was in motion. Now, here it stands before him, breathing, a ring-bearer, Denethor says quietly, "and you bring this weapon into my city, Boromir, without first consulting me, without first asking if Gondor wishes this danger. It is not a weapon to wield lightly," Aragorn interjects, stepping forward. "Lord Denethor, we come from Rivendell, bearing the enemy's ring on a road meant to lead far from all great cities. But Gandalf the Grey fell in Moria. His counsel is lost. In that dark, we chose Minas Tirith, trusting in the Tower of Guard. We seek only to advise together, to decide together how best to shield this thing until it can be unmade. The word unmade lands like a foreign coin on Denethor's ears. Destroy it. Throw away the one leverage that might turn the tide. And you," he says coldly, "are who to speak of such choices in my hall?" "Aragorn, son of Arathorn," Aragorn replies. His heart hammers. "Chieftain of the Dunedain of the north. And by right of ancient lineage and the shards of Narsil, I have some claim to the concern of Gondor." A silence falls that is almost physical. Denethor's gaze drops slowly to the sword at Aragorn's side. The broken blade hangs there, reforged not yet, waiting for a destiny postponed. Even in its current state, Denethor recognizes it. He has sat too long with old scrolls, with brittle genealogies not to Narsil, Denethor murmurs. "So, the heir of Isildur comes unbidden to my city, bringing with him the very doom that broke our forefathers' pride. Is this jest, Ranger, or insult?" "It is neither," Aragorn says. It is necessity. Gondor cannot stand this war alone. Gondor has stood alone for generations, Denethor snaps, the mask slipping. While your line skulked in the wild, playing at chieftains in forgotten woods, my sons bled on these walls. My people starved, my captains fell. Where were you then, son of Arathorn? The hall breathes in. This is not the moment Gandalf foresaw, eased by the wizard's presence, tempered by hard-won respect. Denethor faces Aragorn without any mitigating influence, and all his long bitterness finds a target. Aragorn feels the old shame rise, and with it, anger long buried. He meets Denethor's gaze unflinching. "I was where I was needed," he says quietly. In the north, holding back, fell things that would have spilled from Angmar's wastes. The enemy has more faces than the one that stares at your eastern wall. Boromir stands between them, torn. He loves his father. He has come to respect this ranger who carried their fellowship through grief and snow. He senses dimly that a rift between them could break more than pride. Frodo watches, feeling small and out of place, the ring pulsing with interest at the strife of men. Denethor's hand tightens on his white rod. "I am steward of Gondor," he says, each word a stone. "While I live, no other shall sit in this city's highest chair, nor lay claim to its loyalty. You may stay here as my guest, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. You may advise if your counsel proves wise, but do not mistake this refuge for invitation." He turns his gaze to Frodo then, and in that moment the full weight of Gondor's need shows through the cracks. "Halfling," Denethor says, voice softer, almost weary, "you bear a crushing burden. I do not envy you. You shall have rest, whatever our quarrels. Food, safety, quiet to consider your next steps." Gondor does not devour her guests. Frodo swallows. "Thank you," he says, not knowing what else to offer. He can feel the conflicting desires in the room, to keep the ring, to cast it away, to use it, to hide it. They swirl like eddies around him. Denethor gestures. "Take them to quarters on the 6th level," he orders the servant. "Ensure they lack for nothing. Boromir, you will attend me tonight. We have much to discuss." The fellowship is led away up winding stairs, through white stone corridors that smell of dust and old wood wax. Outside, bells ring faintly as the sun crosses noon. From kitchens waft smells of baking bread, of stewed lentils, of onions frying in fat, a warm, ordinary counterpoint to the high talk of doom. On the 2nd level, a girl named Marin hangs laundry on a roofline, watching the strangers pass below. She will later tell her younger sister that she saw a halfling with her own eyes, with curly hair and a tired face, and he smiled at her when he thought no one was looking. She will remember that smile in a year when the sky itself seems to groan under weight. In the tower, Denethor and Boromir face one another across a heavy table strewn with maps. "You did not tell me all," Denethor says without preamble, "when they are alone, at the council in the north, in your letters. You spoke of a weapon, a great peril, but you did not name it. Did you fear I would claim it at once?" Boromir looks down, then up. "Yes," he says honestly, "and I feared myself as well." Denethor blinks, caught off guard by the admission. "I would have used it," Boromir continues, fists clenching, "to save our city, to sweep the enemy from the field. It sings of such things, Father, of banners unfurled and fear turned back against the fearful. But I have seen what lies behind that song, a hollowing, a turning of the will. It is not our tool. It is his." Denethor studies his son's face, seeing there the lines of strain, the new sobriety in his eyes. In some small, hidden place, he is proud. But over and above that pride rolls a dark tide of practicality. We cannot destroy it here, Denethor says slowly. Not within the circle of the world that I know. They say it can only be unmade in the fire that forged it, in Orodruin, in the heart of his land. Yes, Boromir answers, such was the counsel of Elrond Halfelven, to send it into Mordor in secret with few companions, to trust in stealth, not strength. Denethor lets out a bitter laugh. Stealth? Against a being that weighs the world with his stare? Folly, elven folly. While they sing beneath their trees, men die on walls. He leans closer, lowering his voice. Listen to me, Boromir. In the Seeing Stone, I have seen great hosts gathering in the east. Black sails on southern seas, wolves in northern snows. The storm we feared all our lives has come. If we cast away the one thunderbolt that might break it, what remains? Last stands in pretty words? Boromir's jaw works. You would wield it, he says. You would take it up yourself. Denethor's hand hovers as if he can feel the weight of the ring from a distance. I would not, he says, and for a moment he means it. But there may come a time when someone must. Better a steward of Gondor than some dark sorcerer in the east. Better a man who loves this city than one who would burn it for sport. Boromir looks at him, seeing the fervor in his father's face. Or perhaps there is no better in that path, he says quietly. Perhaps the ring cares nothing for love or hate, only for will. And in the end, all who hold it make the same shape in the world. Denethor's expression shudders. You have been listening too much to northern songs, he says sharply. Go now. Rest. On the morrow, we will speak with this Aragorn and his halfling, and we will decide what Gondor will do. But do not forget, my son, that this city is our charge, not Elrond's, not the dwarfs, not the rangers, ours. Boromir bows his head and leaves, feeling as if he is walking into a narrowing tunnel. Days pass in an uneasy peace. The hobbits taste white bread, soft as clouds, drink clear water from stone fountains, wander narrow streets bustling with traders, children, cats. For a time, their world shrinks to small, ordinary joys. A boy teaching Pippin a local game with stones, Sam marveling at the ordered garden on the 6th level, Merry arguing amiably with an old soldier about pipeweed. Frodo stays mostly inside, staring out over the Pelennor from a narrow balcony. From here, he sees the broad fields stretching to the river, the farmers bent over furrows, the thin line of the Ramas Ichor encircling the land. Beyond, hazy with distance, lie the brown slopes of Emin Achnen, and beyond those, a darkness that never quite lifts from the horizon. Sometimes at night, he thinks he sees a faint red glimmer far to the east, like a coal buried in ash. Aragorn spends his days in long, fraught conversations with Denethor and his captains, with Boromir standing between them like a bridge and a barrier both. He argues for sending the ring on, away from Gondor, under guard, but not under command. Denethor presses to keep it, to use it as a last resort. The captains, many of whom have lost brothers and sons on the Black Gate, find their hearts tugged between fear and hope. The enemy's eye is upon us, says one, a scar down his cheek. If he learns that his ring lies within our walls, will he not strike at once with all his might? Then perhaps his fear of its misuse will stay his hand. Denethor counters. Perhaps he will hesitate, watching, unsure. In war, hesitation is as valuable as any sword stroke. Aragorn shakes his head, and in that hesitation, the ring sinks deeper into whatever hand holds it. Do you not see? Time is the poison here. not the cure. Evenings, Aragorn walks the walls, staring east. He feels the ring's presence like a pressure behind him in the chambers where Frodo sleeps. Once he passes near their door and hears, faintly, the hobbit talking to someone. No, something in his dreams. "No," Frodo murmurs. I won't give it to you, not even to save them, not even for that." Aragorn closes his eyes against the ache that rises. He does not know that far below the city, in the dark, forgotten tunnels that thread under Minas Tirith's foundations, a thin, pale creature drags itself along, drawn by scent and hate. Gollum had followed as far as the roots of the mountains, then lost the scent in Rohan's open fields. Now he has picked it up again, faint but real, in the city's sewers, his precious, high above, wrapped in hobbit flesh. He mutters as he crawls, claws scraping stone. Tricksy Baggins. They takes it to men, yes, they does. They wants it for themselves, but we will have it, oh yes, we will have it before the eye. He is not the only one hunting. In Osgiliath's ruins, a Nazgul lifts its head, smelling on the wind a change it cannot yet name. Its mount snorts, stamping skeletal hooves on the broken stones. The wraith's empty face turns west, toward Minas Tirith, and lingers. In Isengard, Saruman watches from Orthank's pinnacle as storm clouds roll over the mountains. In his palantir, he sees only indistinct shapes in Minas Tirith. Stone walls, flickers of firelight, the white banner fluttering. Sauron does not show him more. The Dark Lord is wary of his would-be ally's curiosity, yet Saruman guesses much. So Gandalf falls, and still their little plans scuttle on. Saruman murmurs. They go to Gondor instead of the Golden Wood? How interesting. He fingers a small band of metal in his hand, a lesser ring of power he himself forged, imperfect, not of Sauron's making, but not entirely free of that shadow. He toys with it as a child might toy with a sharp knife, unaware of how deeply it can cut. If they keep the ring in Minas Tirith, Sauron will strike there first, he muses aloud. If they send it on, perhaps by river or by secret ways, its path will be fraught, and my orcs may intercept it. Either path serves me, if I am ready. He turns to the pits where his Uruk-hai are drilled under torchlight, their blackmail clinking, their strides long. "Increase the forges," he commands. "I want 10,000 at the fords of Isen when the snows melt. Rohan must be swept aside before the Great War begins. Gondor must stand alone when the hammer falls. The trees of Fongorn tremble at his words. They have no voice yet in this tale, but their roots twist deeper in pained anticipation. Time in Minas Tirith thickens. Messages come from the south. Haradrims stir, banners with red serpents unfurled. From the north, orcs in the dead marshes, strange lights bobbing. From Rohan, a strained silence, broken only by rumor of a great defeat at the fords and riders slain on the east road. Ioma's horn hangs unused at Aragorn's belt, heavy with what-ifs. Frodo's dreams grow worse. One night, he wakes to find Denethor standing in his chamber's doorway, a single candle in his hand. The steward's face is hollowed, his eyes bright. "I did not mean to wake you, Master Hobbit," Denethor says. "Forgive an old man his curiosity." Frodo pushes himself up, rubbing his eyes. Sam, asleep on a pallet nearby, stirs, but does not wake fully. "My lord?" Frodo asks, fearful and curious. Denethor steps inside, setting the candle on a table. Its light throws long shadows against white stone. "I have long known that some great doom would come to this house," Denethor says quietly. "In my youth, I thought it would be through glory, a king returning perhaps, or some great victory. In my middle years, I knew it would be through fire and loss. In my old age, I wondered if it would be through madness. He studies Frodo, small and rumpled in his nightshirt, curls sticking up, eyes too old for his face. Instead, it comes in the shape of you. Frodo swallows. I'm sorry, he says, because there seems nothing else. Denethor's mouth quirks. It is not a smile, but something like one's ghost. Do not be. We do not choose the times we are born into, nor the burdens laid upon us. We choose only how we bear them. He sits on a chair by the window, peering out at the dark fields. I have seen Orodruin's fire in the Seeing Stone, he admits. I have seen armies massing. I have seen a small, stubborn path through all that chaos, a path that might lead to our salvation. It is thin as a blade of grass. It might be you, or it might be the ring itself, wielded in some desperate hour. Frodo shivers. Gandalf said it could not be used. Not truly, not by us. It would turn whoever took it up into another Sauron. Gandalf is dead, Denethor says, so softly it could almost be pity. His certainties died with him. The world is murkier than wizards admit. Men must sometimes do things they abhor for smaller evils to avoid greater. He looks at Frodo, weighing his next words. If you leave this city with your burden, you will walk into horror beyond telling. You will likely die. You may fail, and then all this. He gestures out the window to the sleeping city. All this will burn for nothing. He leans forward. But if you stay, and if in the last extremity we take the ring and wield it, we may die also. The city may still burn, perhaps even more surely, but we might buy time. For the West, for others. Which doom do you choose for us, Ringbearer? Frodo stares at him, heart pounding. The question is cruel in its clarity. He is no strategist. He is a hobbit who likes good-tilled earth and full pantries and quiet mornings. Yet here, a great lord of men asks him to choose how an age ends. I don't know, Frodo whispers. I only know that when I touch it, it wants to go east, to him, if we use it even for a good reason. How long before it turns us? Before we're not choosing anymore? Denethor holds his gaze for a long, searching moment. He sees no guile, no hidden scheme, only fear and an awful resolve. It both enrages and moves him that such a small creature should hold such honest clarity, while he, Denethor, chokes on webs of possibility. Sleep then, Denethor says, standing. I will not press you tonight. But know this, Frodo, son of Drogo, I will not let Gondor fall for the sake of an elvish dream. If the choice comes between this city and a quest I did not choose, I will choose my city. He leaves as quietly as he came. Frodo lies awake long after, staring at the ceiling, the ring a burning weight on his chest. In the days that follow, the tone of counsel shifts. Denethor grows more withdrawn, shadows gather under his eyes. He consults the Palantir more often, seeking some hint of Sauron's next move, and in doing so, opens himself wider to the Dark Lord's prodding malice. Sauron, sensing a mind of pride and power, pushes visions of despair and overconfidence both, alternating them like a torturer's tools. He shows Denethor vast hosts beyond counting, and then flashes of them in disarray, as if broken by some unseen force. He lets Denethor believe that perhaps the ring is in Gondor already, that perhaps the game is closer to stalemate than it truly is. Denethor clings to these glimpses, reading them as omen and permission. Far away, in the Aemon Muil, a path not taken grows over with thorn and moss. In Lothlorien, Galadriel holds in her mind a vision of a halfling gazing into a mirror, sees instead only ripples reforming into her own reflection. She knows then that the world has blinked away from the one narrow road she had hoped for. "The ring will not come to us," she says softly to Celeborn, "nor will Mithrandir. The storm will break elsewhere first, then we must strengthen what we can here," Celeborn replies. "And when the time comes, decide if we will remain behind our fences or step into the flood." The golden wood glows on, a defiant ember in a darkening world. When the blow falls, it falls on Gondor. Sauron has waited, feeling with his malice for the shape of the ring's journey. He does not yet know its exact resting place, but through the Palantir he has tasted Denethor's mind, heard fragments of thought around burden, choice, weapon. It is enough. He judges that the ring is near Minas Tirith, or will be soon, and that the steward's pride will not readily relinquish it. So he strikes where the pride lies. Darkness boils over Mordor's mountains one morning, spilling like liquid night into the sky. The sun grows dim, a mere coin behind a thick lid of cloud. Orcs pour from the Black Gate and from hidden paths in Efelduth, massing with drums and crude banners. Southrons march with tall spears, Mumaks trumpeting. The air itself tastes of ash. In Minas Tirith, the beacons flare to life, one by one, a chain of fire across the white-faced peaks, calling for aid. Rohan sees them, Éomer, now marshal and outlaw, both thrown from Edoras by Grimace whispers and Saruman's growing hold on Theoden, stands on a ridge as a beacon blooms bright on a far mountain. He clenches his fists. "They call," says a rider at his side. Gondor asks for aid. Éomer thinks of the strange company he met in the Eastamnet, of Aragorn's grave eyes, of the small hobbits clutching their cloaks against the wind. He thinks of Edoras, where Theoden sits like a half-wakened ghost. He thinks of Wormtongue's smirk. "Worms and wizards," he mutters, "would have us stay home and rot." He swings into his saddle. Sound the horn. We ride. The Aord thunders eastward, but they are fewer and later than in another tale. Saruman's assault at the fords of Isen has cost them dearly. Theodred lies in a barrow by the Isen, not in a healer's bed. In Minas Tirith, Denethor stands on the parapet of the citadel, cloak snapping in the hot, foul wind, and watches a black tide gather across the Anduin. Narsil hangs at Aragorn's side, still unreforged. As he stands beside the steward, "They come sooner than we hoped," Denethor says. "You goaded them," Aragorn replies. "In the stone, with your probing. He has felt you as you have felt him." Denethor does not deny it. Below, the people of Minas Tirith hurry to shutter windows, to herd children into safer alleys. Soldiers run along the walls, checking armaments, stringing bows, hauling stones for catapults. The city hums with a terrible purpose. Frodo sits in a small room alone with Sam, turning the ring over in his fingers. It seems to grow heavier by the hour. "We should have gone," he whispers. "We should have slipped away before all this. Now if we leave, they'll think we're running from the fight, or they'll try to stop us. Or," Sam puts a hand on his arm, "or we stay," he says hoarsely, "and wait for him to come to us. And then all these people die for our sakes. They share a look, horror mirrored. There is no clean path. A horn sounds, high and clear. Denethor descends from the wall, cloak billowing, and strides into the great hall where captains gather. Boromir is there, helm under his arm, eyes burning. Aragorn stands among them, a stranger and yet not. "The enemy moves," Denethor says. "We meet him at the river and at our walls. Osgiliath will fall. We cannot hold it against what I have seen, but we will bleed them there. Then we shut the gates and stand to the last." "And the ring?" Aragorn asks. Denethor's gaze flicks to him, Then to Frodo's absence. "The ring remains in the city," he says. "If our walls fall, we may yet have need of it." Boromir stiffens. "Father, no more debate," Denethor snaps. "The hour of debate is past. Now we act." Aragorn's hand curls slowly into a fist. He sees the fatal track. Fear, then desperation, then the eager whisper of the ring. He had hoped to avoid it by moving quickly, by sending Frodo away before the armies came. But paralysis, argument, and Denethor's pride have delayed them. The storm has found them unready. Later, in a quiet corridor, Aragorn meets Frodo and Sam. "The hobbit's face is pale," Jaw said. "I'm going," Frodo says before Aragorn can speak. "Tonight, with Sam, while everyone's busy with soldiers and shouting and doom. We'll slip out a postern gate, go down to the river, find a boat, or not. We'll manage." Aragorn's heart twists. "It is what should have been done from the start," he says. "I see that more clearly now than ever. But can you get past the guards? Past Denethor's eyes?" Frodo gives a bleak half-smile. "They're looking outward," he says, not at one or two little shadows slipping away. "And Denethor's eyes are full of fires he saw in his stone. He won't see us." Sam shifts his pack on his shoulders, already filled. "We can't stay," he says, "not and watch this place fall because of us. If we go, maybe hell look eastward, not up here." Aragorn kneels before them, putting a hand on each of their shoulders. "If you reach Mordor's border," he says, voice low and fierce, "remember, not all paths lead through the gate. Find the soft places. There is a creature, Gollum, who has trailed you in the dark. He may be your bane or your guide. Beware him, but you may have need of his knowledge." Frodo nods. "Will you be all right?" he asks, hating himself for how small the question sounds against the roar of war. Aragorn smiles, and for a fleeting moment, the king shines through the ranger. "I have been in war before," he says. "We will hold as long as we can. Our task is to give you time. Yours is to make that time mean something." They part in a dark corridor, in a city that does not know its hope is walking out into the night. Gollum sees them go. From a grate in a lower wall, two yellow eyes glitter as Frodo and Sam slip through a little-used postern near the river. Cloaks drawn up, hoods low, they move like flitting shadows between lamplight and deeper dark. Soldiers on the walls shout orders, carts rumble toward storehouses, bells toll the mustering of companies. No one looks twice at two small figures carrying bundles. Gollum slithers after, all but a wisp. They reach the riverbank, where longboats lie moored, ready to ferry wounded or retreating forces if Osgiliath falls. Frodo hesitates only a moment, guilt burning in his gut, before untying one. "We're not stealing," Sam mutters under his breath as they push off. "We're borrowing for the fate of the world. The current takes them east, toward Osgiliath's ruined arches and the blackness beyond." Neither sees the tall, pale figure watching from a shadowed arch above, one of the Nazgul, sensing a disturbance it cannot quite fix. The ring, so close, is shielded by water, distance, and Frodo's growing will. The wraith turns its attention back to the city's walls, to the larger feast. Dawn breaks, dim and red. Osgiliath falls in a screaming chaos of orcs and men and collapsing stone. Boromir leads a sortie that saves hundreds of soldiers, but nearly costs him his life. He returns to Minas Tirith bloodied, grim, more determined than ever. On the Pelennor, black banners spread like stains. Engines of war rumble forward. The Rama's Ekor, Gondor's outer wall, shudders under impact. Minas Tirith's great gates close. Inside, Denethor sends Faramir, who has returned from a scouting mission in Ithilien, having never intercepted Frodo in this timeline on any riverbank, never having had a chance to show mercy that would crack his father's armor, back to the front, despite the younger son's obvious exhaustion. "You would have me love you less?" Denethor snarls when Boromir protests. "Should I coddle him now in the face of this? No. Let him prove himself. Let him earn his place." Boromir watches his brother ride out, jaw clenched so hard it hurts, feeling some thread of fate draw tighter. The Battle of the Pelennor begins. Arrows darken the sky. Stones from catapults soar, trailing fire. Siege towers creak and groan, crawling toward Minas Tirith's walls on huge wooden wheels. Orcs swarm. Ladders clatter against stone. Men shout. Steel clangs. The air fills with dust and screams. Aragorn stands on the wall, sword flashing, cutting down orcs that gain the parapet. Legolas beside him sends arrow after arrow into eyes and throats. Gimli's axe rises and falls with a steady, brutal rhythm. Sweat and blood mix on the stones beneath their boots. In the great gate's shadow, a deep boom resounds as Grond, the battering ram like a wolf's head, slams into ancient wood. Fire blooms with each strike. The enchantments laid long ago strain. Denethor in the tower holds the Palantir one last time, seeking some hope. Sauron shows him instead a vision of a black-sailed fleet on the Anduin, sails bearing no device Denethor knows. He does not see the subtle hints that in another telling those sails might have hidden friends. Here and now, Aragorn has never walked the paths of the dead, never taken Andúril, never claimed that dread army. The fleet belongs to the corsairs of Umbar. Denethor's hope shrivels. "They come to finish us," he whispers. "No help, no king, only fire." He stumbles from the tower, wild-eyed, muttering. In the hall below, a servant drops a tray at the sight of him. "Flee!" Denethor cries. "Flee, you fools! Gondor is lost. The West is lost. All is lost." His mind, battered by Sauron's images, by pride, by fear, cracks. Yet he does not go to the tombs with oil and flame. Not yet. Something else calls him first. He goes to find the ring. In their small chamber, the hobbits are gone. Beds empty, belongings missing. Denethor stares, the absence a physical blow. "They have taken it," he breathes, "while we bled and argued. It is gone." For a moment, despair threatens to swallow him whole. Then a bitter, perverse relief blooms. "Good," he says hoarsely. "Let them bear it. Let them draw his eye away. We will die as we must without that thing corrupting my house." He does not send riders after Frodo. He does not tell anyone, not even Boromir, that the ring has left the city. In the noise and rage of battle, one more secret slips easily between stones. On the walls, Aragorn hears a roaring cheer from the orc. Lines. He looks and sees a figure riding forward, tall, cloaked, crowned with iron, mounted on a great black beast with leathery wings. The Witch King of Angmar approaches the gate. Grond strikes one last time. The gate explodes inward in a shower of burning splinters and twisted iron. A wave of orcs surges toward the breach. Gandalf is not there to meet them. Instead, it is Boromir who rides into the gap, horn sounding, banner of Gondor streaming. His sword shines, cutting down the first ranks of orcs. Behind him, a line of men surges, their cries half fear, half defiance. The Witch King rides through the smoke, mace dripping shadow, terrible will radiating like heat. He laughs, a sound like grinding stone. "Fool," he snarls, "no man can hinder me." Boromir feels icy dread claw at his heart. For a moment, he wants nothing more than to wheel his horse and flee. But he thinks of the walls behind him, of his brother on the Pelennor, of his father spiraling into madness, of the small hobbits who slipped away into greater peril than even this. He lowers his lance and charges. Above, Eomer's horn sounds. Rohan has come, but later and with fewer riders than in that other, softer timeline. Still, their arrival sends a shock through both armies. Theoden rides at their head, half freed from grimace lies by the urgency of war, his eyes clearer than they have been in years. He cries, "Ride now, ride for ruin, and the world's ending, chaos reigns." On the river, black sails appear. In another world, they would conceal the white tree and the 7 stars. Here, they bear only the black serpent of Umbar. No king stands upon their prows, only corsair captains with teeth filed sharp, scenting plunder in Gondor's ruin. Aragorn sees the sails and feels an emptiness. There is no ghostly host at his back, no secret advantage. They bear down upon a city already failing. In the breach, Boromir meets the Witch King. They clash like storm and mountain. Boromir's blade shatters on the Wraith's armor, sending a shock up his arm that numbs it to the shoulder. The Witch King's mace crashes down, smashing shield, splintering bone. Boromir is hurled from his horse, landing hard. He gasps, blood in his mouth, looking up at the looming shadow. So falls Gondor's pride. The Witch King hisses, raising his mace again. "You are no king, you are no—" An arrow whistles from the wall, striking the beast in its eye. Legolas, face-stricken, not knowing if he buys seconds or doom. The winged creature shrieks, rearing. The Witch King's blow falls wide, smashing stone. Boromir rolls, pain screaming through his side. Eowyn is not here. Merry is high on the wall, far away, too small to be seen in the melee. The ancient words about no man hang in the air, seeking their fulfillment in vain. The Witch King recovers and turns back, fury burning. He looks down at Boromir. "Die," he says simply. His mace falls. Stone cracks. Dust rises. When it clears, there is a broken body at the Witch King's feet, armor caved in, horn shattered. Boromir's eyes stare sightless at the ashen sky. On the wall, Denethor sees his firstborn fall. Something in him that was still human, still father, still heart. Tears open. The scream that rips from his throat cuts through battle noise, through clangor and roar. For a moment, every eye on the city's upper levels turns to the steward, sees him stagger. He does not go to the tombs. He goes instead to the heights. Clutching the palantir, Denethor stumbles back to the tower's topmost chamber. He holds the seeing stone high, face twisted. "You win," he snarls into its depths. "Take your victory, then feast on it. But know this, I will not give you the satisfaction of seeing me beg. I will not be your puppet, as your ring would have made me." He flings the palantir from the window. It falls, spinning, catching shards of red light, and smashes on the stone courtyard below in a shower of dark glass. A wave of psychic backlash ripples through the city stone, through the minds of those attuned to such things. In Barad-dûr, the eye flares in sudden incandescent fury. On the river, as their small boat slides into the shadow of Osgiliath's broken arches, Frodo stumbles, clutching his head. Sam reaches for him, alarmed. "Mr. Frodo? Has—" Angry, Frodo gasps. Something broke. He sees us less now, or more wildly. I don't know. It hurts. Gollum, clinging to the underside of their boat, hisses softly. "Good, let him rage. He cannot see us if he looks too hard elsewhere. We goes by the back ways, yes, precious. We know the paths he forgets. Who said you could come?" Sam snarls, swinging his foot down. Gollum yelps and clings tighter. "Leave him!" Frodo says through gritted teeth. He might be right. We can't go through the gate. We need a guide. Back in Minas Tirith, the loss of the Palantir severs one more line of perception between Sauron and the West. The Dark Lord still feels his foes with the broad senses of malice, but some finer filaments are cut. He redoubles his assault in blind rage. The Pelennor becomes a charnel field. Rohan's charge breaks many orcs and Haradrim, but without the turning of the battle at the river, without the White Fleet's sudden revelation as friend rather than foe, the weight of sheer numbers begins to tell. Theoden falls beneath his horse, crushed. Eomer fights like a madman, grief-stricken. Eowyn rides somewhere in the melee, helmet lost, hair streaming, cutting down orcs that come near, but the Witch King, having slain Boromir and sensing no prophecy to fear, turns his attention elsewhere. He circles above, directing Nazgul cry to terrify men. Aragorn leads a sortie from a side gate, attempting to hit the flanks of the orc host, but they are too many. His men are driven back, step by bloody step, toward the walls. Gimli goes down under 3 orcs and does not rise. Legolas drags him clear, but his friend's breath is shallow. The elf's eyes burn with a sorrow older than the sun. In a narrow alley of the first level, Hild, the woman from the West Fold, now a refugee, presses her brother against a doorway as orcs march past. She has a knife. Her hands shake. When one orc turns sniffing, she drives the blade into its throat before it can cry out. She has never killed anything larger than a chicken before. She does not stop to be sick. There is no time. The world narrows to individual acts of courage and cruelty, while above it all, the larger pattern shifts. Frodo and Sam, with Gollum's guidance, slip through the dead marshes, through the black gashes of Emyn Muil, and toward the toothy silhouettes of Cirith Ungol. Their road is harder without any elven boats, without lembas from Lorien, without the memory of Galadriel's mirror. But necessity teaches its own grim lessons. In Minas Tirith, after a brutal day and night, the outer levels finally buckle. Orcs flood the first and second circles, fires burn unchecked, the sky is a low, pressing lid of smoke. On the 6th level, Aragorn stands with the last organized resistance, blood crusted on his brow. "We can't hold," a captain gasps. "We must fall back to the citadel, to the White Tower." "And then what?" Aragorn demands. "Bar the doors and wait? No. We break through where we can, get as many as we can to the river. If we cannot save Minas Tirith, we can still save her people. The city is not its stones." He thinks of Denethor, unseen since his mad dash to the tower. He thinks of Boromir, lying somewhere on the field beyond. He thinks of Frodo, walking into nightmare. Something in him finally lets go of the idea that kingship is a matter of walls and thrones. It is a matter of how one stands when those crumble. He gathers the remaining Gondorian and Rohirrim forces and in a daring, desperate move leads a breakout toward the North Gate, not fully shattered yet. They fight through the encircling orcs, aided by the sudden arrival of Eomer's weary Aorid from the far side of the field. "Where is Theoden?" Aragorn shouts between sword blows. "Dead!" Eomer grits, tears on his face, splattered with black blood. "Rohan is yours to command if we outlive this hour." They lock eyes, an understanding passing. Whatever crowns or titles either might claim no longer matter. They are simply men trying to shepherd as many lives as possible through a collapsing age. Against all odds, a stream of civilians, women, children, the old, begin to pour from a side gate, shielded by shield walls of soldiers. Hild stumbles among them, half carrying her brother. Marin, the laundry girl, grips the hand of the boy who taught Pippin his stone game, dragging him forward. Behind them, The White City burns. Sauron, watching through a haze of rage and partial sight, feels the ring slipping further from his grasp, eastward, even as one of his greatest prizes, Gondor's capital, falls. He is not yet omniscient. His power is vast, but not perfect. Denethor's destruction of the Palantir has blinded one of his finer lenses. He makes a choice. Instead of pouring more strength west, he turns a portion of his attention inward, toward Mordor's marches, toward the path he suspects the ring will take. He sends more watchers to Cirith Ungol, more orcs into the pass, bolsters Shelob's lair with foul sentries. His mind stretches thin, but he gambles that Minas Tirith is already effectively broken. He is not entirely wrong. By the time Aragorn and Éomer shepherd the last refugees across the river in stolen and salvaged boats, the White Tower's crown has collapsed. The upper levels glow like a kiln. Nazgul wheel overhead, screaming victory, yet below that ruined skyline, beneath the smoking arch of the gate, life flees. Gondor does not end here. It is scattered, blooded, but not entirely taken. On a low hill on the river's western bank, Aragorn looks back, chest heaving, and feels a grief so large it almost crushes him. "I have failed," he says. Éomer stands beside him, shoulder bandaged. "You are alive," he answers. "They are alive." He points to the huddled thousands behind them. As long as some remain to remember, no city is truly fallen. Aragorn nods, slow, not comforted, but steadied. "Then we must keep them alive," he says. "Somewhere the shadow cannot reach. Quickly." "Where?" Éomer asks. "Rohan burns behind us. Gondor smolders." "The north is far." "The north," Aragorn repeats, mind racing. "Yes, the north. We cannot strike back at Mordor now, not yet. Our task is to carry the remnant, to hide what light we can until—" He looks east, where unseen, Frodo and Sam crawl toward a black, unseen cliff. Until another task is done. He does not know if Frodo lives. He chooses to act as if he does. They turn their ragged host toward the long road to Rivendell, to the Grey Havens, to any place where Elrond's wisdom and elven craft might offer shelter. It is a retreat, but not a surrender. It is a long, bitter road. In Mordor's shadow, Frodo stumbles on the steps of Cirith Ungol, breath rasping. Shelob waits above, vast and hungry. Gollum licks his lips, torn between hatred and a sliver of strange loyalty. Without the Lembas sustaining power, Frodo is more exhausted than in another tale, more vulnerable. Yet his will has hardened too. He has seen a city fall because they did not act quickly enough. He has watched men tear themselves between pride and prudence. He has chosen again and again to move forward when every instinct screams to stop. He sees Shelob's fangs descending at the and raises his sword. Not elven-made sting left behind in haste. No, that he still has, glowing faintly blue, warning. He slashes. Sam throws himself in the way. Gollum lunges. Everything becomes a blur of legs and light and ancient malice. The path to Mount Doom narrows for them into personal agony, into betrayal in the cracks of doom, into a final desperate struggle at the edge of fire. That tale unfolds with cruel similarities to the one known. Gollum's mad joy, Frodo's moment of failure, the ring dancing on the brink. When it falls, and Sauron's essence unravels, the shock wave blasts outward, not only through stone and tower, but through all the half-woven threads of this altered world. In the east, Barad-dûr collapses, its foundations dissolving. In Minas Tirith's ruins, orcs pause, shrieking, clutching their heads, then turn on each other in frenzy. In the hills where Aragorn's remnant trudges north, A hot wind passes overhead, smelling of spent lightning. People look up, feeling something they do not have words for ease in their chests. On a low ridge in Rohan, where only blackened stones mark what was once Hild's village, the young woman stands alone, her brother buried in a shallow grave behind her. She feels the change and does not smile. Too much has been lost. But she unclenches her fist for the first time in days. The shadow that had been growing, that had felt on the verge of swallowing all, recoils. Yet this victory is not the same as in the gentler tale. There is no white standard unfurled on a new shining city. No king crowned beneath the sound of silver trumpets. Minas Tirith's high levels are ruins. The white tree burned in the city's fall, any surviving saplings hide in unmarked groves, waiting. The great libraries of Gondor have lost scrolls no one living remembers. Denethor lies in a simple grave on a hillside, far from his city. It was Aragorn who, finding his body among the retreating chaos, collapsed near the tower's base. The Palantir's shattered remnants around him chose to bury him quietly, without pyre, without spectacle. Boromir's grave is unmarked beneath trampled Pelennor grass. Rohan's golden hall still stands, but Theoden did not live to see peace. Éomer reigns as king over a land diminished, its fields scarred by war. He rides the borders more often than he sits in Medoceld's high seat, mistrustful of any distant shadow. The Shire survives, barely brushed by war but shaken by rumor. Many hobbits never know how close doom came. They speak of the troubles in the south and the burned city as distant tales. Yet Pippin and Merry, returning later, carry in their eyes a weight that does not fit their merry names. Elrond's house in Rivendell fills with more mortals than ever before. Gondorian refugees, Rohirrim families, scattered northern folk. Rivendell becomes less a hidden elven haven and more a crossroads of broken peoples. Elrond bears it with quiet grace, knowing that his time to depart has shrunk. His ship cannot carry all these new sorrows. Aragorn does not claim any throne. He becomes, instead, something older and stranger, a wandering high chieftain of a scattered west, bearing no crown but the trust of those who know his deeds. He moves between pockets of survivors, between Gondorian camps in Anorian's woods, Rohirrim clans in the valleys, breeze-weary traders, dwarven outposts in the blue mountains, elven enclaves dwindling in the trees. He brooks no tyrant, no petty warlord preying on the weak in the storm's wake. His name becomes a rumor, passed from campfire to campfire, a tall man with gray in his hair, with a broken sword at his side, who appears when hope is thinnest and leaves before songs can be written. He and Éomer meet once a year on a hill overlooking the Mering stream to share news and counsel. At one such meeting, years after the fall, they stand in a chill dawn, cloaks whipping in the wind. "We survived," Éomer says, gazing east where Mordor's mountains still brood, though their fires are out. Barely. At times, I wonder if this broken peace was worth the cost. Aragorn considers. Below them, children's laughter rises from a nearby camp, Gondorian and Rohirrim racing in muddy grass. "Ask them," he says quietly. Éomer watches the children for a long moment. "They don't know what we lost," he murmurs. "They will," Aragorn replies. "In stories. In the gaps where you say, 'There was once a city of white stone, and it stood here higher than any tree,' and they frown, trying to imagine it. Or when you say, 'There was a golden hall where kings sat,' and they look at your weathered tent and ask if that's what you mean." Éomer snorts softly. "You have grown more of a philosopher, Aragorn. Someone has to." "Now that Gandalf is not here to chide us," Aragorn answers. His eyes softened for a moment, remembering the old wizard's laughter. In the end, the ring was destroyed without a king on a throne or a wizard on a white horse. It was destroyed by a hobbit's failing and a creature's obsession. The world was remade not by our glory, but by our frailty. Eomer is silent a long time. Do you regret it? He asks finally. Not claiming what was yours in Minas Tirith before it fell? Aragorn looks down at his hands. They are scarred, calloused, marked by countless small healings and harms. I have what was mine to begin with, he says. Duty without ornament, roads instead of halls, faces instead of statues. He glances at Eomer. Perhaps in another world, I sit on a high seat and listen to petitions from dawn to dusk. I'm not sure I envy that man. Eomer laughs then, a rough, genuine sound. The wind carries it away. In a green valley in the north, Frodo sits on a bench before a simple wooden house that Elrond's people built for him. His hand, on quiet days, still aches where Gollum bit it. His sleep is never fully free of firelight on stone. Sam tends a small garden nearby, coaxing unfriendly northern soil into life. Rosie waits for him in the Shire, or perhaps in this tale, she came north too, drawn by Sam's refusal to leave Frodo's side. Children run between the rows, barefoot and loud, their laughter a kind of healing. Do you ever wish, Sam asks one evening, as twilight paints the mountains purple, that Gandalf had made it? That he'd ridden in and sorted everyone out like in the stories? Minas Tirith saved, kings crowned, all neat and tidy? Frodo watches the sunset a long time before answering. Sometimes, he admits, when the memories come sharp. When I think of Boromir dying alone on that field, of Denethor, broken by things he saw and couldn't change, of all those people in the city, they might have had an easier time with Gandalf there. More hope, fewer mistakes. He flexes the missing fingers absently. But then I think, he continues, about what Gandalf used to say, about how even he didn't see all ends, how the small hands and little kindnesses mattered more than any one person in the end. He died in Moria, and the world didn't break. It bent, it cracked, it found new shapes. Sam grunts. Doesn't make it right that he died there. No, Frodo says, it doesn't. But he told me once that pity saved him. Once, long ago. Someone sparing a life they had every reason to take. Maybe this is what that looks like, rippling out. We lost much, but we didn't lose ourselves. Not entirely. He looks at Sam, eyes bright in the dimming light. Do you think it could all fall again? In 100 years? 200? Without kings and shining cities? Without wizards watching? Sam looks at the children playing among bean poles, at the simple houses, at the way people share bread across old national lines, Rohirrim and Gondorian and Bree folk, all muddled together. He scratches his chin. I think, Sam says slowly, that it might. Folk forget. Shadows creep. But I also think there's more people now who know what it costs to let things slide, who won't be fooled so easy. Maybe there's no big things holding it all together anymore. Maybe it's just lots of little things. Lots of people deciding not to be cruel, or not to take what isn't theirs, or to help someone cross a river. Frodo smiles, thin and real. That sounds like something Gandalf would have liked, he says. Then maybe he didn't entirely fail, Sam replies. Even falling there. Maybe that's the trick of it, Mr. Frodo. Maybe in this world, we don't get shining endings. We get enough, just enough, for the next lot to have a chance. As the years wear on, stories of that dark age twist and fade. Children of the third and fourth generation hear of a burned city in the south in half-remembered songs. Some say it was Minas Tirith. Others insist it was some lesser town. The truth erodes. The Shire's tales of the War of the Ring become muddled with talk of the big people's fight and that time when the sky went funny. Elves depart in dwindling numbers from the Grey Havens, leaving behind fewer and fewer of their folk. The last ship waits longer, for there are always more broken men to shepherd into some semblance of peace. Círdan grows wearier with each season, somewhere in an overgrown courtyard where white stone blocks lie tumbled and ivy coils. A single sapling leafs out with 7-pointed leaves. No one knows what to call it. Children play beneath it, uninterested in its lineage. Gollum's bones lie in an unmarked crack in Orodruin's flank, where they fell after he danced too close to fire. Shelob slumbers deep in her hole, wounded and weary. Orcs, leaderless after Sauron's fall, scatter into the wild, becoming scattered raiders, bogeymen and border tales. Sauron himself is gone beyond recall. There is no second rising. His shadow thins and finally dissipates, no longer a will, merely a memory. In the end, the world does not belong to kings or wizards or dark lords. It belongs to Hild, who plants wheat over the site of her destroyed village and teaches children to swing a scythe. To Marin, who opens a little inn on the Great East Road and hangs above its door a carved white tree, not because she remembers seeing it on any banner, but because her grandmother spoke of it with a softness in her voice. To nameless rangers who patrol forest margins and never tell the people they save how close the wolves came. And to a small stooped hobbit in a green northern valley who one day stands at the edge of a gray ship and looks back at a world forever wounded and forever worth the pain. The sea wind tugs at Frodo's hair, salty and cool. Gandalf is not there to smile at him from beneath bushy brows. Only Elrond, Galadriel, more grave perhaps in this version of farewell, and a few elves whose names he never learned. Sam stands on the shore, tears tracking through the dirt on his cheeks. "Are you sure?" he asks. Frodo nods. "There are some hurts, Sam, that this land can't quite heal, even this land. Besides," he glances at the gathered elves, "someone has to go tell him how it all turned out, if he's anywhere to hear it." Sam swallows hard. "Tell him we did our best, even without him." Frodo smiles, steps onto the gangplank. "I think he knows." The ship pulls away, gliding across water as smooth as glass. The sun sets in a blaze of orange and gold behind the ruins of stories and the quiet, everyday miracles that have grown in their place. On a far-off shore that may be a dream or a mercy, a bent old man in gray sits on a bench beneath a tree that has no name in any mortal tongue. He hears footsteps, looks up, and his eyes crinkle. "Well," Gandalf says softly as the hobbit approaches, "you took your time." Frodo laughs once, startled. "We had a bit more to clean up than you expected." They sit together in silence for a long while, watching waves that do not break upon any shore. Back in Middle-earth, night falls over a world that escaped the consuming shadow by a hair's breadth, without the fanfare it deserved, at greater cost than anyone will fully remember. In the empty court where the white tree once grew, ivy curls over cracked stone, and in the moonlight, the space where it stood looks, for a fleeting moment, like the outline of something vast and living that has stepped just out of sight.